Today we are discussing chemical bond. That means we are trying to understand how compounds are formed. The smallest particle in a compound is molecule. Therefore, we are going to learn how molecules form, how chemical reactions happen, what actually happens inside between any two atoms. That is what we are going to know in this chapter. So, here the first question that comes to the mind is, why do atoms combine? Why do atoms combine? Simple answer is, atoms combine to get stability. That is the simplest answer. Now, there is another question that comes. Are they not stable? If they are not stable, why they are not stable? All these questions we have to answer. Now, before answering that, assume that atoms are not stable because of the smaller size, and then we will answer this question first. How atoms combine? Let us say there are two atoms, atom A and atom B. This is the nucleus of atom A and electron of atom A, valence electron. This is nucleus of atom B and electron of atom B. So, what happens is, this is the valence electron of atom A is attracted by the nucleus of atom B because they are opposite sides. Similarly, nucleus of atom A attracts the valence electrons of atom B. Therefore, because of the attraction, the two atoms tend to get closer. When they get closer, what happens? The nucleus of both the atoms A and B are getting together. Also, the valence electrons are getting together. Now, these valence electrons repel, these nuclei repel. That means, what we should understand, there is a force of attraction which brings the atoms together, and there is a force of repulsion which keeps the atoms away. Now, combining these two, we can understand, if the attractive force between two atoms is more than repulsive force, then a bond happens. If the attractive force is less than repulsive force, that means repulsive force is more than attraction, then there will be no bond between the atoms. Simplest answer, both these questions. Why do atoms combine? Stability. How do atoms combine? Either because of attractive forces, they form bond. If there is no attractive force, repulsive force is more, there is no bond. This is the simplest possible answer. Now again I am coming back to the first question. Why do atoms combine? Then we should look at the nature of elements. In the periodic table, if you consider all the elements, there are 8 A group elements. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, which we call them inert gases or noble gases. They are the chemically least reactive elements. They have no compounds at all. But all other elements have some type of compounds. That means some have more compounds, some have less compounds. At least a compound it is forming means it is reacting. Whereas these inert gases are not at all reacting. Now, if we look deeply into the inert gases, let us recall most less periodic law. The physical and chemical properties of elements are periodic functions of their electronic configurations. All the inert gases except helium have a general electronic configuration Ns2 Np6. This is the general electronic configuration of all inert gases. Now, therefore, it was assumed that this configuration is the root cause for the stability of inert gases. Stability means non-reactive nature. And why other elements are reactive? Only to acquire this electronic configuration. Atoms, either by losing electrons or by gaining electrons or by sharing electrons between them, they try to acquire this configuration, inert gas configuration. So, therefore, this is what is called octet rule. Octet means 8. 8 electrons in the valence shell is the root cause for the stability of an atom for not forming a bond. Therefore, any element, any atom of any element, while involving in any bond, somehow acquires this octet configuration in the valence shell. So, this is what is called octet rule, which was proposed by Lorentz. And now, so the main thing is 8 electrons in the valence shell. Now, if you look at sodium, sodium configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. This 3s1, third shell is the valence shell, in that there is only 1 electron. Now, sodium, if it does not have this 1 electron, then it has a 2s2, 2p6 in the valence shell. Therefore, it has a natural tendency of losing an electron. Then it can acquire the stable configuration of neon. Whereas if you take a fluorine, fluorine atomic number is 9, electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p5. Therefore, it is in short of only 1 electron comparing to neon. Therefore, fluorine tries to acquire 1 electron. And if it gets 1 electron, it will acquire octet configuration. So therefore, fluorine has electronegative character, sodium has electropositive character. So the nature is totally depending upon the electronic configuration of the elements. Now, to understand how does this bond happens clearly, we should understand Lewis dot structure. In drawing a Lewis dot structure, we should remember 2 things. A Lewis dot structure, looking at a Lewis dot structure, we can understand only 2 things. Number 1, the element. Number 2, its valence electrons. So, only we are representing the symbol and the valence electrons. For example, hydrogen, Lewis dot structure is this. Here, this H indicates the nucleus of hydrogen atom, whereas this into indicates the valence electron. Now, because hydrogen has only 1 electron, this is sufficient. But if you look at lithium, lithium atomic number is 3. So 1s2, 2s1. So this into is the 2s1 electron. Only the valence electron we will indicate. Lithium symbol. This symbol indicates the nucleus of lithium and also the inner electrons. So that means lithium nucleus and 1s2 electrons. Sodium nucleus, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6 electrons. And this is the 3s1 electron. So, the most important thing we must remember in drawing Lewis dot structure is only you write the symbol which denotes the element, its nucleus and the electrons of the inner shells. And valence electrons are to be represented either by a dot or by a cross. See here neon. Neon atomic number is 10. So 1s2 is the inner electron. Ne indicates neon nucleus and 1s2 electrons. 2s2, 2px2, 2py2, 2pz2. Total 8 electrons in the valence shell. So an electron is indicated by a dot or by a cross. Now not only neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, all will have the similar dot structure. For example, argon, I will write it like this, simply argon. It doesn't matter whether we put a dot or a cross, but the system we follow is when there are atoms of two different atoms are there, to identify the electron that belongs to a particular atom, for one atom we use dot and for another atom we use cross. This is the notation. So argon dot structure is this. Krypton dot structure, you just remove argon here and write krypton. This is krypton structure. You remove this krypton, write xenon. This is xenon structure. Helium, it has 1s2, therefore only 2 electrons. Now first group elements, first A group elements, hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium. See, only the symbol is changing, the dot structure is not changing. Only 1 electron in the valence shell. Second A group, valence group number is 2, so valence electrons 2. Therefore beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, radium, all will have the similar dot structure. Third A group, boron, group 3A, so this is 2s2 2p1. Aluminum 3s2 3p1. Boron and aluminum have similar dot structure. Fourth A group, carbon valence is 4, so 4 electrons. Silicon, fourth A group, 4 valence electrons and 4 are represented like this. Fifth A group, 5 valence electrons. Now look, nitrogen, if you look at the configuration, 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. The orbital diagram is 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. Now the valence electrons are 2s2 and 2p3. So I am indicating only valence electrons here, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz. Phosphorus, 3s2, 3px1, 3py1, 3pz. Now oxygen, atomic number 8. So 2, 2, this is 2s2, 2px2, 2py1, 2pz. Sulfur, 3s2, 3px2, 3py1, 3pz. Fluorine, 7th A group, 7 electrons, 7 valence electrons. 2s2, 2px2, 2py2, 2pz. That means when the electron is a pair, we put 2 intos or 2 dots, and when it is a lone electron, we will put 1 dot or 1 cross. This is Lewis dot structure. Now here you may get a doubt. Why in the dot structure we are using only valence electrons? So why valence electrons are only important for chemical bonding? We should understand that valence electron means electrons in the valence shell. Valence shell is away from the nucleus. That means the valence electrons are under the least influence of the nucleus. That means electrons in the inner shells are strongly attracted by the nucleus, and electrons in the valence shell are least attracted by the nucleus. Therefore, only valence electrons involved in the bond formation. Here, I will explain one more point. Valency, covalency. Valence electrons means number of electrons in the valence shell. Covalency means the number of covalent bonds it can form. That is the only difference. So now we will try to understand Ionic bond. What is ionic bond? Ionic bond is a bond between two ions. What is an ion? An ion is a charged body. An ion is different from an atom. So an ion can have either more electrons or less electrons. If an ion has less number of electrons than the atom, then we call that cation. A cation is formed by losing of an electron from an atom. If there are more number of electrons than the protons in an ion, then we will call it an ion. Sorry. Yes. Now, an anion will have automatically negative charge. An anion is formed by gaining of an electron. So, generally, metals form cations, non-metals form anions. Now, let us look here. So, that means normally an ionic bond will be formed between a metal and a non-metal mostly, where the electronegative difference is at least 1.9. If at all an ionic bond has to happen between two atoms, the electronegativity difference must be more than 1.9. Only then an ionic bond happens between two atoms. Now let us see the formation of sodium chloride. Sodium is first group element, chlorine is the seventh group element. Highest electronegative element, highest electropositive element. Sodium atomic number 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. So, if this one electron is not there, it is very similar to the configuration of neon. Therefore, sodium has a tendency of losing electron. This is what we call electropositivity or metallic atom. Now, chlorine, atomic number is 70. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p5. So, it is just short of one electron to the nearest direct gas, argon. So, chlorine by gaining one electron becomes like argon. Sodium by losing one electron become like neon. That means both have an opposite tendency. Now, cation formation. Cation formation means positive ion formation. So, sodium, when sodium is given energy, we are using this energy to liberate an electron from sodium atom. Therefore, this is ionization energy. When ionization energy is given to sodium, then sodium releases an electron and a cation is formed. Now, chlorine. If you give this electron to chlorine by taking this electron will become chloride ion. This is what I call anion, and energy is released. Here we are giving energy, here energy is the end product. Here in the first equation, electron is the byproduct. Here energy is the byproduct. So electron is released here, energy is taken. Electron is taken, energy is released. Total system is balanced. Now we have a cation sodium and an anion chlorine. Therefore, sodium ion and chloride ion will be held together by strong electrostatic force of attraction, because this is plus and this is minus. So, sodium chloride ion is formed. This is how sodium chloride ion is formed. Now, let us look at calcium oxide formation. Another example for ionic bond. Calcium, second group element. Atomic number quantity. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2. So, if it loses this 4s2, then 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6. So it is very similar to argon. Therefore, calcium is willing to lose 2 electrons. Oxygen atomic number is 8. 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. Therefore, oxygen, if it acquires 2 electrons, then there will be 8 electrons in the valence shell. Look, even if it loses 2 electrons, there are 8 electrons in the valence shell. Here also, if it loses this electron, this will be the valence shell and 8 electrons. And it gains 1 electron, there will be 8 electrons in the valence shell. This is what octet rule says. Now, so oxygen has a tendency to take 2 electrons. Now, cation formation. Calcium, by giving first ionization energy, then 1 electron is released. We want 2 electrons. That means we have to give extra energy. This is called second ionization energy or second ionization potential. So, calcium ion, again energy is given, then Ca++ ion will be formed and 2 electrons are available. This is the cation. Now, oxygen, by taking these 2 electrons, oxide ion, anion is formed, and energy in the form of electron affinity will be released. So, in ionic bond formation, it is a bond between 2 ions. Ions are charged particles. Ions can be formed by losing of electron or gaining of electron. If an electron is lost, a cation is formed. If an electron is gained, an anion is formed. Now, anion and cation, because they are oppositely charged, there will be strong electrostatic force of attraction, because of which they will be held together and bond is formed. This is what I have explained, ionic bond formation. Now, the properties of ionic substances. What is an ionic substance? A substance in which ionic bond is present is an ionic substance. Sodium chloride, what is the bond present? Ionic bond. Calcium oxide, what is the bond present? Ionic bond. So, sodium chloride, calcium oxide, cesium chloride, etc. are ionic substances. Let us look at the properties of these ionic substances. These ionic substances, ions are held by strong electrostatic forces of attraction. That's why they exhibit high melting points and boiling points. Ionic substances do exhibit high melting and boiling points. And they are available to us as crystalline solids. If you look at rock salt, it will be crystalline form. And this crystal has something special. There is something called coordination number. In a crystal, one anion is surrounded by fixed number of cations, and each cation is again surrounded by the same number of anions. Such a number is called coordination number. Coordination number. So, in sodium chloride, each sodium ion, cation, is surrounded by 6 chloride ions, and each chloride ion is surrounded by 6 sodium ions. Therefore, a positive ion is surrounded by 6 negative ions, a negative ion surrounded by 6 positive ions. So, the coordination number of sodium chloride is 6. Therefore, in every ionic substance, this coordination number will be there. In cesium chloride, the coordination number is 8. So, they are crystalline solids, and they are good conductors of electricity in molten state. That means electrolysis can be done. They conduct electricity, and they dissolve in polar solvents like water. You know, salt can be dissolved in water. Why water is a polar solvent? Polar means poles. Water is considered to be the combination of H plus and OH minus. So, here the principle is like dissolves in like. Sodium chloride Na plus Cl minus, water H plus OH minus. So sodium chloride crystal can be dissolved in water. So in any polar solvent, ionic substances can be dissolved. Yeah. 10 seconds from now. So, as electronic theory of valence has certain drawbacks, like why there is a difference in bond lengths and bond energies for atoms if only electron pair is shared between them. They must be same, but why they are different? Next, for some molecules are acquiring some shape. For example, water molecule V shape, methane molecule tetrahedron shape, ammonia pyramidal shape, beryllium chloride linear shape. Why these shapes and why these bond angles are formed? That electronic theory of valence failed to explain. Now, considering that a theory came into existence, this is called VSEPRT, Valence Shell Electron Pair Repulsion Theory. Valence Shell Electron Pair Repulsion Theory. In valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, if we want to understand this theory, we should keep these words in mind. Here, this theory explains the formation of molecules where there is a central atom. What is a central atom? For example, ammonia. Ammonia molecule formula is NH3. So, there are 3 hydrogens and 1 nitrogen. So, nitrogen is the central atom. Methane molecule, CH4 molecular formula. So, 1 carbon, 4 hydrogens. So, carbon is the central atom. And BeCl2, beryllium is the central atom. Boron trifluoride, boron is the central atom. So, the atom that is only 1 in number is the central atom. And the atoms of other elements which are more in number, they form bond with this by sharing the electron pair with this central atom. So therefore, the nucleus of the central atom is surrounded by electron pairs which are bonding pairs and non-bonding pairs or lone pairs. Lone pair or non-bonding pair, both are same. So, in the molecule, there is a central atom and that central atom is surrounded by electron pairs. But the electron pair may be the result of a bond or the electron pair genuinely belongs to the central atom. So, if it belongs to the central atom, it is lone pair. If it does not belong to the central atom, it is a bonding pair. And these electron pairs tend to repel because electrons have negative charge. There will be repulsion between the electron pairs. Valence shell electron pair repulsion. When surrounding the nucleus of the central atom, when there are more electron pairs, whether bonding or non-bonding, there will be repulsion between those electron pairs. And most importantly, the non-bonding pair or lone pair occupies more space of the central atom compared to the bonding pairs. That means lone pair has an advantage. It takes more space. Generally, when there are 2 electron pairs, the space is shared equally. 3 electron pairs, the space is shared equally. But if there is a lone pair, the lone pair takes more space and the bonding pairs have to adjust. So that is the important point of this. I just give a recap of this. In valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, there will be a central atom. Central atom means only one atom in the molecule of one particular element, and there are more number of atoms of a different element. Then central, around the nucleus of the central atom, electron pairs will be there, bonding or non-bonding. Non-bonding pair or lone pair means that pair solely belongs to the central atom. And bonding pair means it is sharing an electron with one more atom. So bonding pair, non-bonding pair, both are there. Now, this theory says that there will be repulsion between these electron pairs and the lone pair occupies more space around the nucleus. Now let us look at the examples. Beryllium chloride formation. Look at the formula BeCl2. Beryllium is one element, chlorine is one element. But beryllium only one atom, chlorine two atoms. Therefore, beryllium is the central atom. Now, beryllium atomic number is 4. Electron configuration is 1s2, 2s2. The ground state configuration is 1s2, 2s2. With the 2p, all the 3 orbitals of 2p are empty. But by excitation, the electrons in the 2s the pair will dissociate and one electron enters into the 2px orbital of beryllium. Normally, 1s2, 2s2, this is a pair. That means in the ground state, beryllium Lewis structure should be written like this. But in the excited state, it has 2 unpaired electrons, both in the valence shell. Therefore, Lewis dot structure of beryllium is this, 2 unpaired electrons. Now, chlorine. Chlorine atomic number 17, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4. So, chlorine dot structure is this. There is 1 electron. Now, beryllium has 2 unpaired electrons, chlorine has only 1 electron. Therefore, we need 2 chlorine atoms. That means 2Cl plus Be. BeCl2. 2 chlorine atoms are there. Actually, 2Cl we should not write. Cl2 we should write. But I am indicating atoms. That's why 2 chlorine atoms, 1 beryllium atom forms BeCl. Now, chlorine atom, first chlorine atom with 1 electron. And another chlorine atom with 1 electron. Beryllium has 2 unpaired electrons. Now this electron and this electron form a pair. This electron and this electron form a pair. Now this pair is shared between chlorine and beryllium. This pair is shared between beryllium and chlorine. That means beryllium being the central atom. Now around beryllium nucleus there are 2 pairs are there. 2 electron pairs. Now this is both are bonding pairs. This is a bonding pair, this is a bonding pair. Now in this bonding pair, they share the space equally because there is no advantage. If it is a non-bonding pair, then unequal sharing happens. But this is a bonding pair. Therefore, 2 bonding pairs share the space around beryllium equally, and so bond angle will be 180 degrees. I repeat once again, try to understand this. Beryllium atomic number is 4. So, configuration is 1s2, 2s2. The 2p sublevel is empty. Now, that means in the orbital diagram, we have 2 electrons in 1s and 2 electrons in 2s. This is called ground state configuration. In the excited state configuration, excited state means state ready for bonding. In that, the 2s electron pair will decompose and 1 electron will enter into the 2px orbital. Now, beryllium has 2 unpaired electrons. Now chlorine atomic number is 17. So it has 7 electrons in the valence shell. This is the Lewis dot structure. Beryllium has 2 unpaired electrons. Chlorine has only 1 unpaired electron. Therefore, we need 2 chlorine atoms. 2 chlorine atoms and beryllium combines with and form beryllium chloride. Now see, chlorine atom with 1 electron and this is 1 electron. These 2 lone electrons will form a pair. This is a bonding pair. This is a lone electron. This is a lone electron forming a pair. This is another pair. Both these pairs are shared between the 2 chlorine atoms and 1 beryllium atom. But you look at the central atom beryllium, the space around the nucleus of the central atom is shared by 2 pairs of electrons, but both are bonding electrons. Therefore, the space is shared equally, and so the bond angle ClBeCl, ClBeCl, bond angle will be 180 degrees, and the shape of this molecule is one linear. Now let us look at BF3 formation. Boron atomic number 5. 1s2, 2s2, 2px1. This is the ground state configuration. But in the excited state configuration, this 2s will decompose and there will be 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2p1. Remember, boron is a third group element, so its valence is 3. Beryllium is a second group element, its valence is 2. That's why this excitation happens. Now, there are 3 unpaired electrons in boron. So, this is the dot structure of boron. And the fluorine, atomic number is 9. So, 1s2, 2s2, 2px2, 2p2, 2pz2. So, this is the Lewis dot structure of fluorine. Beryllium has 3 unpaired electrons, whereas fluorine has only 1. That means we need 3 fluorine atoms. 3 fluorine atoms plus boron gives rise to boron trifluoride. And look, boron, 1 fluorine atom has 1 unpaired electron, boron 1. This forms a pair. That pair is shared between these 2. And this, there is another electron, another fluorine atom, third electron, third fluorine atom. So, here a pair is shared, here a pair is shared, here a pair is shared. That means boron nucleus is shared by 3 pairs of electrons, but all the 3 are bonding pairs. As all the 3 are bonding pairs, it must be, the space must be equally shared. That's why the space around boron nucleus 360 degrees is equally shared into 3 parts. So FBF bond angle will be 120 degrees and a triangular shape. This is what happens in boron trifluoride formation. Now the interesting thing is ammonia. Ammonia molecular formula NH. Nitrogen atomic number 7. 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. That means nitrogen has 1s2, 2s2 electrons. This is 2s2 electrons. 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. That means now the trouble comes. This nitrogen has a lone pair. This is already a pair, but it is in the valence shell. Here, remember, beryllium also it has a pair, but it is in the inner shell. For boron or beryllium, the pair is in the inner shell. In the valence shell, there is no pair in the excited state. Here or here. But in nitrogen, there is no excited state. Because according to Hund's rule, all these 3 orbitals of 2p are filled with 1 electron each. Therefore, there is no need for this 2s to decompose. So, nitrogen has 3 unpaired electrons with a lone pair. And as there are 3 unpaired electrons, we need 3 hydrogens. 3 hydrogens and 1 nitrogen with 3 unpaired electrons. So, each hydrogen forms shares an electron with nitrogen and 3 pairs are formed. But look, nitrogen has already one lone pair in the valence shell. Now, because of the bond formation, there are 3 pairs formed. That means in total how many pairs are formed? 4 pairs are formed. That means these 4 pairs must share the space around the nucleus of nitrogen. So, the shape must be a tetrahedral shape with a bond angle 109 degrees 28 minutes. But if you consider this, what is this? This is a lone pair and this is a bonding pair. All these are bonding pairs only. So, the lone pair occupies more space, because of which there is a deviation in the bond angle, and the bond angle HNH bond angle will be reduced to 107 degrees 48 minutes. So, I think I will repeat once again. Nitrogen has 2s2, second shell is the valence shell. 2s2 is also a valence electron. 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. That means in the valence shell of nitrogen, there is a pair and there are 3 unpaired electrons. Hydrogen has only 1 unpaired electron. Therefore, 3 hydrogens react with nitrogen with 1 lone pair. This lone pair is there and the 3 hydrogens will form 3 bonds. That means around the nitrogen nucleus there are 4 pairs of electrons. So, normally it should be a tetrahedral angle, but because this is a lone pair, it occupies more space. That's why nitrogen should always be represented like this. Ammonia should always be represented like this. This is a bond, this is a bond, this is a bond. This bond angle is what we are talking about. So that's why the shape of ammonia is triangular. Now, this is how valence shell electron pair repulsion theory explains the formation of molecules. But this theory has drawbacks. What are the drawbacks? Number 1, remember electronic theory of valence. In that, what were the doubts raised? Why the bond angles are not same? Why the bond lengths are not same? Now, and why there is a bond angle? Why there is shape? Shapes, bond angles are explained according to VSEPRT, but bond lengths and bond energies are not explained. This is the drawback in VSEPRT. We are now going to understand about valence bond theory. This negates electronic theory of valence and VSEPRT theories. What valence bond theory says is, when atoms are forming a bond, it is not the electrons that are shared. When atoms get closer, the orbitals with low electrons will overlap on one another. Due to this overlap, bonds form. So, therefore, the very essence of electrons shared is ruled out, because electron is not a stationary thing. You take one electron, keep it here, you take another electron, keep it here and share them. No, electron is a moving body. Because of the movement of electron, shapes of orbitals are formed. So therefore, electron in a particular orbit will have a specific orientation, which we call orbital. So, when two atoms come together, these orbitals overlap. Basing on the overlap, bonds are formed. So, it's wrong to say that electron pair is shared. That means the root, the foundation of electronic theory of valence and VSEPRT are ruled out. Now, what this theory says is, when two atoms get together, then the orbitals with lone pair will overlap on each other and then bond is formed. depending upon the extent of overlap, bond angles and bond lengths are decided. If the extent of overlap is maximum, bond length is minimum, and bond energy is maximum. If the extent of overlap is less, then bond length is more and bond energy is less. So, according to this theory, the overlap of orbitals can happen in two ways: a sigma bond and a pi bond. That means orbitals overlap axially or orbitals overlap laterally. That means end on end overlap. That means axial overlap. That means if you can draw a single line along the orbitals overlapping along the internuclear axis, we call it a sigma bond. If that is not possible, the overlap is supposed to be lateral, side on side, and that we call pi bond. So there will be a sigma bond and a pi bond depending upon the nature of overlap, whether the overlap is happening axially or laterally. And here clearly, as sigma bond is happening along the internuclear axis, it is a strong bond. And pi bond is a side-on-side overlap, therefore it is a weak bond. Now, if between two atoms, when there is more than one bond happening, then one bond is necessarily sigma bond, the remaining bond pi bond. So, in H2 molecule, there is only one bond, that is sigma bond. In O2 molecule, there are two bonds, both are one is sigma and the other is pi. And in N2 molecule, there are three bonds and one is sigma, the other two are pi. Not only like that, in HCN molecule is there. In HCN, between hydrogen and carbon, there is a sigma bond. In carbon and nitrogen, there are three bonds. One is sigma, two are pi. So, therefore, if you take C2H2 between carbon atoms, there is a triple bond. In C2H4 between carbon atoms, there is a double bond. So, therefore, if there is only one bond between two atoms, that is always sigma. If there are more than one bond is sigma and the other is pi. Now let us look at the examples. H2 molecule. Hydrogen atomic number 1. So what is the configuration? 1s1. The orbital diagram is this. In the s orbital there is one electron. That means s orbital of hydrogen atom is involving in bond. So one hydrogen atom S, another hydrogen atom S. These two spherical shaped s orbitals are overlapping. It has one electron, it has one electron. Now, because of the overlap, the two electrons are in a common space. And as we can draw a line along the internuclear axis, so this bond is going to be a sigma bond. This overlap we call S-S overlap because S orbitals are involved in the bond. HCl molecule. Hydrogen atomic number 1s1. Chlorine, Z is equal to 17, 1s2, 2s2, 2p5. That means there is unpaired electron in the p orbital of 2p sublet. So, hydrogen, s orbital, chlorine, p orbital. So, s orbital and p orbital are overlapping. But still you can draw a line along it. Then, so this is going to be a bond along the internuclear axis. So it is a sigma bond. HCl molecule is formed. So here this overlap is S orbital and P orbital. sp overlap is happening. Now oxygen molecule, atomic number 8. 1 is to 2 is to 2p4. 1 is to 2 is to 2px2 y1 z1. That means oxygen molecule has 2 electrons in the piece available, a pair, and 2 unpaired electrons. Px is having 2 electrons, py 1 electron, pz 1 electron. This is oxygen atom and this is also oxygen atom. Now when these two oxygen atoms combine, then these two overlap like this. This is a pp overlap. This is also pp overlap. But see, here a single line is possible. That means there is a common axis. That means they are overlapping axially. So this is a axial overlap. Therefore, this is a sigma bond. This is a side-on-side overlap. These two orbitals, py orbitals are overlapping axially. pz orbitals are overlapping laterally. So, in oxygen molecule, there is a sigma bond and there is a pi bond. Two bonds, oxygen molecule, double bond. Now, nitrogen molecule, Z is equal to 7. It is a triple bond. Nitrogen atomic number 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. 3 unpaired electrons in the p subline. So, px, py, pz. Px, py, pz. Now, when two nitrogen atoms come together, then what happens? This px and px overlap. But this is a axial overlap. A sigma bond is formed. This py and py overlap. So, but they are overlapping sideway. Therefore, this is a pi bond. The pz and pz overlap. Therefore, this is also a pi bond. So, a sigma bond and 2 pi bonds. That's why there is a nitrogen molecule is called a triple bond. Having triple bond. Molecules with triple bond, HCN. Between carbon and nitrogen, triple bond is there. C2H2. Between carbon and carbon, there is a triple bond. Oxygen molecule, double bond. C2H4. Between carbon and carbon, there is a double bond. These are the examples for other molecules having double bond. Now, this theory, valence bond theory, examples are explained. Now, it has drawbacks. What are the drawbacks? Here, when we look at beryllium chloride molecule formation, for example, beryllium atomic number Z is equal to 4 and 1 is to 2s1, 2px1. This is the excited state configuration of beryllium. Chlorine atomic number 17. So 1s2, 2s2, 2p5, 3s2, 3p, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p5. That means there is one unpaired electron. Pz orbital of chlorine is involving in bond. In beryllium, one s orbital and one p orbital. This is s orbital, this is p orbital. And chlorine, PeCl2. That means one p orbital of chlorine bond with s orbital of beryllium. And first p orbital, second p orbital of chlorine has to form bond with p orbital of beryllium. So, chlorine, two chlorine atoms, the bonding orbitals are p orbitals only. But in beryllium, the bonding orbitals are one is s and one is p. So, s orbital, p orbital, there is an energy difference. And so, s orbital is of low energy, p orbital is of high energy. So, therefore, this energy difference and chlorine is providing p orbitals of the same energy. Therefore, to remove this contradiction, a concept called hybridization came into existence. So, the main drawback in valence bond theory is when there is a central atom is combined with more number of atoms of another element, then the orbitals of central atom are of different energies. Therefore, there will be the distribution, the overlap will not happen properly. So, scientists explained a concept called hybridization. That means this you have to remember. This hybridization happens only in the bonding orbitals of the central atom. First of all, the bonding orbitals of the central atom, when they are of different shapes and energies, there will be a redistribution of shape and energy. This process is called hybridization. So, hybridization is the redistribution of orbitals of different energies and shapes to produce same number of identical hybrid orbitals. So, hybridization is a process. What type of process? It is a redistribution, intermingling, mixing up to produce identical equal number of orbitals, removing the differences. Let us try to understand through examples. Now, beryllium chloride. See, there is a central atom, beryllium. Beryllium atomic number 4. 1s2. 2s1 to p1. This is the excited state configuration. Now, there is one electron in the 2s and one electron in the 2p. That means 2s orbital is ready for bonding, 2p orbital is also ready for bonding. 2s energy 2 plus 0, 2p energy 2 plus 1 according to Auger principle. This is 2 and this is 3. There is an energy difference. S orbital spherical, p orbital dumbbell. There is a shape difference. Now, when beryllium is trying to form a bond with chlorine, first of all, beryllium adjusts itself within itself, the s orbital and the p orbital. The 2s orbital 1, the 2p orbital 1. These two orbitals undergo a process called hybridization and they produce two sp hybrid orbitals. Generally, a hybrid orbital is represented like this. It is a general notation. So, one s orbital, one p orbital. Total how many orbitals are before hybridization? 2. After hybridization, we got sp hybrid orbitals. The name of the hybrid orbital is sp. And how many we have? 2. Both are of the same shape. Now, these two sp hybrid orbitals with one electron share the space around the beryllium nucleus equally. They are two orbitals, hybrid orbitals. They share the space equally. Now, chlorine. One chlorine, atomic number 17, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p5. So, chlorine bonding orbital is p. So, this is chlorine atom, p orbital double shape. Now, beryllium, this is one hybrid orbital, this is another hybrid orbital. So, this is a p-sp overlap. P orbital of chlorine, sp orbital of beryllium. They overlap. How? Axial. So, sigma bond. Next, the p orbital of another chlorine atom, the sp hybrid orbital of beryllium atom. These two also overlap axial. This is sigma bond. So, p sp overlap, sp p overlap. Now, there are The space is shared equally, therefore Cl, Ba, Be, Cl bond angle will be 180 degrees and the shape is linear. If you look at boron trifluoride, boron atomic number 5. So 1s2, 2s1, 2px2, 1, 2py. That means there is one electron in s and two p orbitals. One s orbital, two p orbitals. So 2s orbital 1, 2p orbitals 2. Total 3 orbitals are involved in the bond. So therefore we will get 3 hybrid orbitals. And as there is one s and two p, therefore we call these hybrid orbitals sp2 hybrid orbitals, and this is sp2 hybridization. This is sp hybridization. So we got 3 sp2 hybrid orbitals. Now these 3 sp2 hybrid orbitals around the beryllium nucleus will share the space equally with one electron each, and so therefore this angle will be 120 degrees. Now this here fluorine, the p orbital of fluorine overlaps here, and this is F, and p orbital of another fluorine atom, and p orbital of a third atom, F. Here this is p sp2, this is p sp2 p, this is sp2p. But remember, this is a sigma bond, this is a sigma bond, this is a sigma bond, and the shape of beryllium chloride, the boron trifluoride is this with the bond angle 120 degrees. If you look at methane, CH4, carbon atomic number 6, 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. That means one s orbital, 3p orbitals, 2s orbital 1, 2p orbitals 3. These are involving in the hybridization process. After hybridization, 1 plus 3, total 4 hybrid orbitals will be there. And what is the name of these hybrid orbitals? sp3 hybrid orbitals. Now, around the carbon nucleus, these 4 sp3 hybrid orbitals share the space around the carbon nucleus in a tetrahedral shape. So, with 1 electron each. Now, 4 hydrogen atoms of s orbitals. So, this is s, sp3 overlap will be there. And this is a sigma bond, this is a sigma bond, this is a sigma bond, and this is also a sigma bond. So all the 4, this is not a quadruple bond, this is a 4 bond. There are 4 bonds, but 4 bonds are sigma bonds. Here there are 3 bonds. This is not a triple bond. Triple bond means 3 bonds between same atoms. But there are 3 different atoms are there. So this is there are 3 bonds but not a triple bond. There are 4 bonds but not a quadruple bond. And 2 bonds but not a double bond. So this is how hybridization solves all the questions raised in chemical bonding formation. And now we have to finish with the properties of covalent compounds. Covalent compounds are formed by weak bonds compared to ionic bonds. So covalent compounds are formed by covalent bond which is weak. Therefore, they are generally, covalent compounds are gases or liquids, and their boiling and melting points are low. They do not conduct heat and electricity normally, and they can be dissolved in non-polar solvents. They cannot be dissolved in polar solvents. So, if at all I miss any points in this lesson, I will just add up a small annex to this. with a 5-minute or 10-minute video. Otherwise, I will look at it, what is recorded. If I miss any points, I will make a small attachment to this and send it. That's all. So we have finished the chemical.